I told you I'd come back, and here we go. Second video of the day for this channel. We actually have another video on my NFL channel microphone, and we've been going crazy on the third channel on FlightMike TV ever since the David Dobrik and Flight Reacts drama came out. So we've been crushing the content across all boards. But pretty much what this video was I heard a lot of rumors in regards to the Los Angeles Clippers, the Brooklyn Nets, the Los Angeles Lakers, Andre Drummond, and all of that stuff. And I wanted to make a separate video for that was kind of separate from the first video. So before we get to the content, just a reminder, I have two giveaways I'm currently doing. One's for myself on my Instagram page. If you follow me on Instagram and have my notifications on, you've entered for a chance to win a PS5. And I'm also collabing with my two other co-hosts on my Laced Up podcast to give away a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X to a subscriber that turns on our notifications there. Now that we got all that out of the way, cue the intro. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? The very first piece of information I want to get to is something that I personally found to be very fascinating. And it's the fact that Lonzo Ball came out and said that he is seeking $20 million at minimum annually in free agency. Believe me, someone's going to end up paying Lonzo Ball this amount. I'm looking at the Knicks or any team whatsoever that wants a big name player with a tremendous basketball IQ. Lonzo Ball's celebrity is so great that people will literally pay to go and watch him, even though he is not necessarily on the same tier of all-star as Damian Lillard is and Steph Curry is. He still carries significant stature with him. And on top of that, he just got a glowing endorsement from Magic Johnson saying that he has the highest basketball IQ out of any point guard.
I'm gonna tell you this. There's no guard in this league, point guard, whose basketball IQ is higher than Lonzo Ball. The IQ of Lonzo Ball is off the chart.
Now, if you remember, Magic Johnson actually is famous for saying that Lonzo Ball was going to break multiple of his Laker records. So it's really funny to see him coming back once again, right when Lonzo Ball is in rumors during the trade deadline. Now, the latest rumor we have in regards to Lonzo Ball, one's fairly surprising, one not so surprising. The fairly surprising one is Denver has entered the mix. They offered Bol Bol in a trade for Lonzo Ball. I honestly think if the Nuggets want Lonzo, they could actually get him because the Denver Nuggets have a lot of assets that they could potentially part with. Now, in addition to this, we have an update in regards to what the Chicago Bulls are willing to offer in a package for Lonzo Ball. Yesterday, I came out and I told you guys that the Chicago Bulls dangled Thomas Satoransky and second-round picks for Lonzo. Obviously, the New Orleans Pelicans said, no, we don't even want to talk to you guys. Now, they also dangled Lauri Markkanen. Now, Lauri Markkanen is pretty much in the same situation as Lonzo Ball. He's set to hit restricted free agency. I don't know how much money he's going to command in restricted free agency, but it definitely is a step up from what they were getting before, but it kind of defeats the purpose for the New Orleans Pelicans to move on from Lonzo Ball just to take in Lauri Markkanen, because they wanted to move on from Lonzo to get out of potentially overpaying for him in free agency. And Lauri Markkanen might be in a situation. Now, when you look at Lauri Markkanen, there is a possibility that you have to overpay him in restricted free agency as well. Obviously, it's a step up from what the Bulls were offering before. Nevertheless, I can expect that the New Orleans Pelicans would be expecting at least a first-round draft pick from the Chicago Bulls if they traded Lonzo to him. Meanwhile, if the Pelicans are able to get Bol Bol on the roster, introduce Bol Bol to Mr. Fred Vinson, and have a starting lineup that features the likes of Zion Williamson, Bol Bol, and Brandon Ingram, that is absolutely terrifying for opposing teams to go up against, including the length that Bol Bol and Brandon Ingram bring to the table. I am just terrified thinking of opposing teams' reactions to a potential starting lineup like that. In addition to all of this, we do have some information in regards to the Los Angeles Lakers. Lakers that I guess would also affect the Brooklyn Nets and the Charlotte Hornets as well. Yesterday, and I know I should have gotten you guys this report yesterday, but I was expecting it to develop a little bit more, and it came out right as I dropped the video, so I'm sorry. But yesterday, we found out that the Los Angeles Lakers were quote-unquote yielding offers for Montrezl Harrell. Now, perhaps that's what explains this very strange cryptic tweet of, just eyeballs, which is probably the most cryptic a tweet could get. And you might be wondering, why on earth would the Lakers give up Montrezl Harrell, last year's 6th man of the year, a very good player in the regular season that they recently signed this past year in free agency? Why would they be so quick to move on from him? Well, I'm going to try to explain this to you as quickly as I can, because we could really go in depth here in terms of how the Lakers like to play basketball, but we could all agree regular season basketball, where things are more on the fly, teams aren't necessarily game planning for each other. They kind of are more this year because they play each other twice in a row, so that kind of gives you more of a mini playoffs like feel. But in the playoffs, when you have to beat your opponent at least 4 times to move on to the next round, you're specifically game planning for each team's weaknesses. As a result, Montrezl Harrell is not necessarily going to get a lot of minutes at center, because the Lakers are probably going to plug in Anthony Davis at center. Markieff Morris is going to get some minutes at center. Marc Gasol is also going to get some minutes at center, even though he hasn't been so good so far. He has that ability to play defense, but also stretch the floor. And Markieff Morris already gives them that small ball center that they're looking for. And since the Lakers are currently pursuing a guard, it makes Montrezl Harrell a little expendable, especially as we get to the latter part of this video where we discuss Andre Drummond. Currently, the Lakers are in demand of shooting, way more than they need to bolster their front court, but they'll obviously take any front court help that they would get. The Lakers also signed Montrezl Harrell for only 1 guaranteed season, so if he declines his player option, they can still retain him using non-bird rights, but that only limits them to offering him only a 20% raise, or roughly $11 million next season, and they are probably not going to make such an offer, which means they're probably going to lose Montrezl Harrell after this season. So it makes sense that they're accepting calls on him, and the Charlotte Hornets so far have been interested in him, which is consistent with other reports we've been hearing about the Charlotte Hornets, because they pretty much have the inverse situation going on. They have a player that they are going to have some difficulty retaining in Devontae Graham, who's set to hit restricted free agency, who had a remarkable sophomore season, shooting 37% from 3 and attempting 9 threes per game and averaging 18 points per game, but has regressed this year. Now, Devontae Graham is a remarkable offensive player, but with the emergence of LaMelo Ball, and with the fact that the Charlotte Hornets already have players like Malik Monk on the roster and many other guards that I'm not mentioning, and the fact that they don't really have much front court help, it makes a lot of sense that they'd be interested in potentially trading Devontae Graham and getting Montrezl Harrell in return. Now, honestly, that's just a hypothetical in my situation. I don't really think that's what they were angling for, but it was just a hypothetical trade in my mind that would give the Lakers what they want, would give the Hornets what they want. I don't expect that trade to happen. It's just a hypothetical. Brian Windhorst also said that the Lakers are shopping Kentavious Caldwell-Pope as well, which is kind of interesting because it's a direct contradiction to what I said previously. But I honestly think this is one of those situations where the Lakers are saying, hey, if you want to engage us in trades, these are the players that we're willing to give up. I don't necessarily think it's a surefire thing that KCP and Montrezl Harrell are going to be traded. If they were, I think the most likely deal that the Lakers would be able to do, and the most attainable target for the Lakers, would probably be a player like George Hill. The OKC Thunder historically have been very easy to trade with. If you could offer them a future first-round pick, which Sam Presti seems to love nowadays, or a second-round pick, I'm sure that they're willing to trade back George Hill, and they won't leave the trade deadline with George Hill on the roster. That seems a little bit more legitimate to me than any other trade the Lakers could potentially make. But the Lakers also have multiple other options to bolster their front court and to bolster their shooting. Another guard that they could potentially add is JJ Redick, who appears more likely headed for the buyout market according to Jake L. Fisher. Now, this is borderline conspiracy theorist of me, I wouldn't be surprised if David Griffin is kind of giving LeBron James a hand here because they have some history, and we've seen former associates of LeBron James do him these type of favors before, like when James Jones cut Tyson Chandler so Tyson Chandler could join the Los Angeles Lakers, but we'll have to see about that. I feel like JJ Redick could easily be traded if a team was interested in him, but that's something that's been a little bit more low-key. What hasn't been as low-key is, according to Brian Windhorst, the Los Angeles Lakers are Andre Drummond's favorite team if he was to get bought out. Now, Andre Drummond has a relationship with Rob Pelinka. If you watch the video of him getting drafted, Rob Pelinka was right there. He would be a tremendous upgrade as a traditional center and an ideal lob threat for LeBron James. Now, this is according to Brian Windhorst, and bear in mind, pay attention to the language he uses here, because I'm personally very skeptical about reports like these. The league believes, and I know that's a vague statement, the league believes also kind of like goes into the same category as multiple executives think and general managers around the league are saying. So bear that in mind as you read this, but it's also Brian Windhorst, which I personally trust. The league believes that numerous teams that I've talked to believe that Andre Drummond is heading for the Lakers if/when he gets bought out. So this is going to be something to monitor, because a couple of weeks ago, Allen Robinson came out and said that the Brooklyn Nets are probably going to sign Andre Drummond. But if you ask me, I think Andre Drummond would have a significantly bigger role on the Los Angeles Lakers than he would with the Brooklyn Nets. But that's my take on the matter. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think, and also check out our podcast Laced Up, as we're going to be discussing these moves a little bit more in depth moving forward. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.